Welcome to Overnight Market Brief, pre-market edition by AGI Era. Good morning. Today is Wednesday, January 7, 2026, and it is shortly after 8 a.m. Eastern Time. This is your executive summary of global market developments, analyzing the overnight flows in Asia and Europe, the key macro drivers, and the setup for the North American Open. The prior session and macro context. First, a look back at yesterday's close. Wall Street finished firmly in risk-on mode. The S&P 500 settled at 69.45, up 0.62%, while the Nasdaq 100 gained 0.94% to close at 25.6040. Crucially, the session was driven by a broad-based rally, but the real story right now is in the macro assets. Right now, the 10-year Treasury yield is trading at 4.142%, down 0.84%. This decline in yields is generally supportive of equity valuations, particularly for growth-oriented sectors. The U.S. dollar index is flat at 98.337, while crude oil is down 0.19% around 57.02. Gold is also under pressure, trading down 1.18% around 444.531, suggesting a rotation out of safe haven assets despite the geopolitical tensions noted in the overnight narrative. Overnight session, Asia and Europe. Moving to the overnight session, global markets have been mixed. In Asia, the picture was mixed. In Tokyo, the Nikkei 225 finished down 1.06%, tracking broader risk-off sentiment in the region. Meanwhile, in Greater China, the Seng declined 0.95%, while the Shanghai Composite was flat, up 0.05%. The divergence here suggests localized factors or a lack of unified conviction, with the Seng potentially reacting to broader regional weakness. In Europe, major indices are trading cautiously. The Eurozone saw positive news with annual inflation slowing to 2.0% in December, hitting the ECB's target. German unemployment remains steady at 6.3%. However, UK construction activity continued its downturn, albeit at a slower pace. This mixed bag of economic data provides a cautious lead-in for U.S. traders. U.S. futures and the open. Turning to the U.S. pre-market, equity futures are largely flat to slightly lower. S&P 500 futures are trading flat, down 0.05%, while Nasdaq 100 futures are down 0.22%. The relative performance suggests investors are showing a slight defensive tilt in tech, despite the overnight drop in Treasury yields. The daily catalyst. Looking ahead to the session, investors are focused on three key catalysts. First, the market will continue to digest the implications of the Eurozone inflation data, particularly how it influences the European Central Bank's future policy path. Second, the ongoing geopolitical tensions, specifically related to Venezuela, will remain a watch item for potential broader market impact, especially on oil prices. And finally, with a light economic calendar for major Tier 1 data releases, flows may be driven primarily by technical positioning and any unscheduled corporate news or analyst commentary. Given the overnight setup in rates and the dollar, the market's path of least resistance appears to be range-bound, pending any surprises from the data releases. That concludes your overnight market brief. Disclaimer, this podcast is not financial advice. Data may be delayed or inaccurate. Always conduct your own due diligence.